Hi everyone, and welcome to my desk. Today we're going to do a short session to show just how quick and easy it is to get started and build something using the tools inside the DataFlex Studio. We're going to be taking an existing database and use this to build the beginnings of an order entry application. So come a little closer and let's begin. So here we have an existing DataFlex workspace. It's pretty much completely empty, apart from the fact that we've already linked this workspace to an existing database. There's no code in here yet, there's no projects. We still have to create everything ourselves. So let's start by creating a new project. We can do this in multiple ways. We could click here and say create a new project, or we can go into the top left and go File, New, Projects. And then from here we can select from various project types. We can create a Windows project, we can create various types of web projects, or we can create a Flextron drill down project. Now, Flextron is a way to build Windows applications using the latest web technologies. And that's what we're going to be using today. So I'll call this Flextron drill down. And then the studio will get to work for us. It will do some setting up, it will do some copying, and it will create the basis of the Flextron application for us. Now we can already immediately run this, and we can see that it has a dashboard for us, but that's pretty much it. The menu structure is pretty empty. There's a couple of tiles here, but when we click on one of them, we immediately get a message that it doesn't know where to navigate to. So those are things that we have to fix. We have to flesh out this project. So let's start by adding views to this project. The easiest way to add new views to your project is by going to the Navigation Designer. We can reach the Navigation Designer by clicking on View and then Navigation Designer, or we can click this little icon over here and then go into the Navigation Designer. Here on the left we have all the tables that are associated with our workspace. These are the tables that are in the database that we link to this workspace. And we can use these tables and use the Navigation Designer to translate our database structure to a view and navigation structure for your project. So we could say, take the customer table, and from the customer table we can drag this select customer tile into the Navigation Designer, and it will come up with this menu, say what fields do you want inside this view. These are all the fields that are associated with the customer table inside your database. We can probably get rid of credit limit, email address, fax number, phone number, and we'll add balance. Click OK, and it will now generate a view for us. And when we double click on this, we can see that this is the view that it has generated for us. It's a framework for a little list that will contain all our customer records. Now the first thing we'd like to do is, before we even get to work with the view, is be able to navigate from the dashboard to the newly created Select Customer view. And we can do that by clicking on this little icon here and then dragging an arrow from one block to the other one. So in this case, we're creating a navigation path from the dashboard to the newly created Select Customer view. And when we inspect this little arrow, it'll say that when we now click on O Tile 2, it will navigate us to Select Customer, which is our newly created view. Good. So now let's go into the customer view. This is the view that is created for us, but we can tweak this view slightly if you want to. For example, this customer number is quite large. It doesn't need to be this wide, so we can make this a little smaller, directly view through our web app visual designer. This balance due column, we probably don't always need to see that, so we can click on it. And then in the properties panel here in the bottom right, this contains all the properties for the object that we've now selected. We want to, by default, hide this column. So we'll go into PB hidden, set this to true. And now this column will be hidden by default. Now we are going to see if what we did actually works. So we're going to run a project. It will spin it up again. And we should now be able to navigate from this tile 2 into our Select Customer view that is created for us. And what you can immediately see is that it has populated this entire list with all the records inside our customer table. So all of this is data from our database. And DataFlex has automatically linked all of the data inside this database to visual components inside our view. So we can now see all the customer records, but what we cannot do yet is see the details for a specific customer. We'd like to be able to click on a customer and then drill down into the customer's details. But when we now click on this little information icon, it doesn't do anything yet. So that's our next step. Let's create a view where we can view the customer details. So back to our navigation designer. We're going to drag the zoom customer tile into the navigation designer this time. Again, the pop-up will show where we can select what fields we want inside this view. Let's add all the contact information, but we don't need credit limits and some other stuff. This will do. Click OK. Again, it will work and it will generate a little view for us. Now, before we actually go into the view, let's first make sure that we can actually navigate to the view. So just like last time, we're going to click on this little icon here, and then from the select customer view, we want to be able to navigate to the zoom customer view. So create a little arrow here, inspect this arrow, and it will say, from the detail button, we are navigating to zoom customer, which is exactly what we want. We also want to be able to immediately create a new customer record, so we need another navigation path. So we're going to create another arrow, and then we'll inspect this little arrow. I'll move this around a little. Inspect this little arrow, and here we can say, okay, instead of O find last, I want to navigate from the O new button, which is a little button that was also generated inside our select view when we created that one. And then we want to be able to navigate to zoom customer, and it is already recognized that we want to create a new record in this case, which is perfectly fine. All right, that's done. Moving into the view. This is the view that it has generated for us, and it contains all the fields that we selected when we dragged that little tile into our navigation designer. Now, it has added all the fields, but it could look a little better. So what we're going to do is we're going to reorganize this view a little bit. We are now in the web app visual designer, and we can, in this visual designer, immediately pick up any one of these fields, and then it will come up with what's called the grid layout, where we can pick up one of these fields and drop them anywhere else inside our view. So we can pick up this customer name, for example, and drop it next to the customer number. We can resize it a little to make it a little smaller. Let's reorganize this a little bit as well, make it look a little cleaner. Move all of these up a little. There we go. Make all of these equal width. There we go. So now our view looks a lot cleaner than what we started out with. Now, other than just being able to modify the view that was created for us, we can also add new stuff to our view. So here on the left, we have what is called the class palettes. And the class palette contains basically all the controls inside the DataFlex suite that you can add to your application. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into web containers, and we're going to add a web group to our application. So we're going to drag it from the class palette immediately inside our view. We'll drop it here, and it will create a new web group for us. From here, we can resize it a little because it probably needs to be a little bigger. And we're going to use this web group to display the financial information for our customer. So, selecting this web group, and then going into the bottom right here back to the properties panel, let's first change the PS caption from plain caption to financials. There we go. And now to this web group, we want to add a couple of extra fields, a little bit of extra information from our customer to show the financial information for this customer. So instead of the properties panel, we are going into the DDO Explorer. Now the DDO Explorer, without going into too much detail and too much depth, the DDO Explorer is a little thing that basically contains all the fields that are inside your view associated with your database. And from here, we can use the DDO Explorer to directly create fields inside our view. So I could say credit limit, purchases, and balance. These are all fields that I want inside my view. So I can pick these up, drag these, and drop them inside our web group. Now, our web group is not very big yet, and we probably need a little bit of a larger grid than what we have now. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to expand this grid a little bit. So here at the bottom right, we have the control for this object's grid, and we can very easily add 2 more grid rows, which is where our controls will live. From there, we can pick up the fields that were just added. So total purchases, we'll move this one down, and then balance due, we'll move this one down as well. And then make them all a little larger so we can actually see what's going on in here. That's it. So when we now compile and run our application again, we should be able to go from the dashboard to the select view, and then from the select view to the zoom view. And inside the zoom view, we should be able to view all of our customers' information. So let's click this little information icon again. And you can see that we can now directly navigate into the zoom view that it has created for us. All the customer information is there, all the contact information, as well as the financial information that we added ourselves using the DDO Explorer. All right, so we've already built quite a little bit of a start for our FlexRun application, but we've done most of the things now directly through the DataFlex Studio's visual interface. Obviously, you don't only have to use the visual interface. You can also write your own little bit of code where needed. So just to show you what a little bit of code writing in DataFlex looks like, we are going to add a little event to our customer view that'll change the breadcrumb caption for us. So what I mean by that is, let's start our application up again. When we now navigate from the select view into a customer detail view, it will say details of customer. And it doesn't matter what customer we select, it will always say details of customer. Now what we'd like to do is when we click on an existing customer, it should say the name of the customer. So Access Miles or Ace Manufacturers, whatever customer we select. And if we click on the new button over here, instead of details of customer, it should say new customer. So let's make that happen. Let's go inside the code. So instead of the visual designer, we want to view the DataFlex code now. So we can hit F7, which will switch us from the visual designer to the DataFlex code. And here you can see all the code that was generated for our view that makes up all the entry item fields that you see inside the view. Now I'm not going to go over all the code for this. That's not the purpose. But what I do want to do is add a little event to this view. Now the easiest way to access all the events for this view is by going here into your C web view and then right-clicking it and then say Object Properties. We can also hit Ctrl+2, or we can click here Object Properties. And then here at the bottom right, there's a little tab called Events. And this is all the events that this view contains. And events are bits of logic that are executed at certain parts in your application. And here you can add your own application logic where you can do stuff that your application needs to do. In our case, we want to add something to onNavigateForward. OnNavigateForward is executed whenever we navigate into this view. And here we want to be able to change the breadcrumb caption based on what we're looking at. So what we'll say here is if navigate data, which is a bit of information that we're getting inside this method, dot be new record. So if it's a new record, then we'll say set breadcrumb caption, and we'll say new customer. And if it is not a new record, that means we clicked on an existing customer, then we'll say else set breadcrumb caption, and we want to display the customer.name here. So we can say customer.name, so we can directly access database fields inside our code. That's it. So when we now compile and run our application again, going to our select view, if we now select any one of these customers, for example, Access Miles, instead of details for customer, it now says Access Miles. If we click on another customer, it will say this customer's name. And if we click on new, it will say new customer. So just that little bit of code made it so our breadcrumb caption is now different. That's it for today. I hope this gave you a bit of an idea of just how quick and easy it is to turn an existing database into a functional data entry application. Thank you for joining me, and have a good one.